I foremost want to begin to bring about where we came from and how we came into this world. Just about a week ago, we had a camp in Mistawashis, and we referred to that as Pasamemewin. Pasamemewin is when our people would gather to begin to smoke dry meat. We would make nêhiyaw na bimigan, mina egagasigiyak. We would smoke the meat. At bimigiak, we would make moose, what they referred to as bimigan, where we take the berries, the choke cherries, and mix it with the ground dry meat. And we'd say, the reason why we say pansawewin, remember we had talked about the poi pan, uchiche pan. A part of these, our food sovereignty belonged to our people in the spirit world. That's why we called it a samachachapani. Within that one, we began to share the creation story about the moose and what it actually, in details. Kaya sa wagagip machimatu ni musum musa. Musak. What this word in the English language means is forever. Musak means forever. Forever, that it will provide life for us, eh? Iniguk egipai petachi miguisyak gishaguguche. That these animals, the four-legged, the swimmers, the crawlers, they began to prepare these lands for us to come. That he loved us, eh? Kiwapatnos kyo, utego tsewa, kinugu tauta. Umisita maguma, inaguge gisagi guagawa, mitte skan. Mitte uskan. It literally means the translation, the heart bone. It doesn't mean antlers the way we're translating it, eh? And that he always fended for us. Magaki na gineo, mamautai mau. He says, Tawinat Tamaswak. He put his hand on this moose, on this bull moose, Kaya, the Nat Tamaswak. And when you put your hand in between here, you could feel Creator's hand, Egina Ginato Yapewa, eh? So, Musak, Egipagit na kupmatsuan, Tawip matsyak ay sinuak. That he literally always gave up his life for our people to live. That's how much love this moose had for us, eh? And still has it. So when we say mitte, means heart, uskan talks about the creation of his life. Today, when we translate mitte skan, antlers, So it's in that time that we share these creation stories about each animal. The longest one that's out there that has a long name is Wastesicoot, which is the chipmunk, eh? In the nutritional value stems, when they took this rabbit, wapus, we were given 4 things in our path very first one that Creator gave us was this achak, which is a spirit. The second thing He gave us was nêhiyaw. Nêhiyaw, the body. The third thing that He gave us was wâhkôhtowin. The brain. We refer to this as win deep, as the brain. It is these things here. When you put these ones together, this is wâhkôhtowin, to use your spirit, your mind, and your body. That's what they refer to as wâhkôhtowin. The fourth thing that He had given us, number 4, is this bawagan, which is a spiritual helper. Bawagan. This is the traveler. Kakike ekagwenatamaguago kipawagan no. You know, just like the story of Huisagechak, eginto pawatak, kekon tawi, natamagu isit maskikiwatik. These medicines were not freely given. We had to go and suffer for that knowledge. They referred to this fasting as nêhiyaw, ewinte nêhiyaw. Out here they refer to it as wâhkôhtowin. You know, what wâhkôhtowin is to go and further get lost. I don't need to go get further lost. I'm already lost as it is. But I'm going to go dream. Ewinte nêhiyaw. What happens is when you take no food or without water, you begin to sustain your own waters. And you begin to have visions, dreams to connect to that. That's the reason why they call it nêhiyaw. And nêhiyaw is the literal thirst dance, to connect to that spirit world. So this pawagan, we were always told to be cautious of this one here. This one has a name. When it comes to these names, these traditional names that we carry today, my grandfather had given me a name, kaskawat noigemaw. Kagakeo maka miwichewe kuno maka kichkinotay kunoma. Wihu wenuma. That your name is going to guide you through life. I said, how is kaskawat noigemaw going to guide me? I don't even understand it, I wanted something like, flying eagle, that walks with the buffalo. Some real exotic name like that. But I didn't get this. So I finally started searching, what does this word mean? Kakaskatatik, the one that's able to penetrate frost of things that have been frozen in time. I was able to begin to resurrect the language, the ceremonies. I began to guide me. And how he explained these names to me is that this one here, Achak, it has a name. This body has a name, we call it nêhiyaw, so it doesn't need a name. We have this wâhkôhtowin, Tipawan is balance. This is your balancing tool. That's why we call it win tipawan. And here, this is the one that gets this name, because this is the one that's able to help you see the unconscious world. Kipawamiuna. That's why it carries that name. They refer to this as nêhiyaw. They wouldn't say nêhiyaw winwin. Tachuma kipawami snigaswan kipawaganitit. And it becomes physical, eh? So it's this one that has to be recognized out on the land and in the spirit, kipawagan. Because that intuition that you feel, something's drawing me here. Why did I come here? And we're always told to be cautious about this one. My grandmother said, never take your anger to sleep, because this one always wants to fend for you. It'll go set up a trap because he's angry at that person. And something will happen to that person. So we were told never to go to bed angry, because that's a time. So never take your anger to sleep, because you don't know what damage that he could do, eh? That's why we end up stepping on things and things come our way, eh? The ultimate question, why? Why are we smudging? Why do we need sweetgrass? Why do we need ceremonies? Why do we need our language? That is not been addressed to us, eh? And that's the ultimate question. Why are these things happening in our communities, our young people? Why? It comes to the point where we came from. Our Creator, when He first gave us, and our history tells us of where our people came from, the East, Wahkôhtowin. And where Creator put us, was on this tree. I like the perceptual language of the English language, because they try and tell us what they see and try to explain to us. Our most sacred tree is what we call mitos. This is why we say nto tema tikitega gi utotiak. Ita mamaw tayo mau distamga gianata isinua. That we were descended upon and put on this tree of life. That was the very first comers. There was 10 that came, mitat. Evunigoge ogi shaguiskok kakiwito sema chikimosominanak. That our grandfathers made it with these spiritual women, how life came to be for us. And the first 10 were put on this tree. They came from our Creator, and they were put on this tree of life. That's why you're going to hear this nto temitak, nto tematik, nto temawamistik, nto tem, itegagi utotiak, where we came from. And you're going to hear right from Labrador or nêhiyaw too. They were just forgotten about in the treaty process. They speak our language. They say inu, we say nêhiyaw. They speak the same language. And it's in this time you begin nto tematik. When you get to the BC coast, you're going to hear this almost a similarity, totem, which refers to that totem pole, eh? All their relations are on that. So as in here, our relationship begin. These terms come from this tree of life. When the first ones that came to this island, and they wrote back to their king, this is what they said in their documentation: Your Highness, my king, we have discovered an abundance of resources on these newfound lands. Although there's an abundance of resources on these newfound lands, although there is a tree that is most abundant, but we're unable to utilize it because it's too soft. But it's the most popular tree in these newfound lands. So out of popularity and abundance, this is what they refer to as the popular tree. You know? So again, in our language, we call it mitos. Mitos. Kaya ko mauchi mitos kauchitak. Eugo kau mantu sana tikumiak. When you put this is our Creator's tree of where life came from. So when He put us here, in our creation story, everybody spoke one language. Peg pigis ko yan pagugita ko. Hawiyashi sak pishiskiwak, manchu sak, kautatagon chik, mistegok, kagino peg pigis ko gyapachitag. When Creator put the first humans on this one, kagipeta ko wâhkôhtowin, wapos. Namoy chigagi peni satawin nanota. Namoy ni nego tuigan. Tagigagos patawito tawago mystic. When the rabbit came by, the humans called out to it to ask for help. And the rabbit responded that he wasn't unable to climb these trees to help them down. But the rabbit says to him, kutagi ako taitawag, tagi ni sugamas, tagi peni satawinskiko tao chimistigok. He said, there are others that are able to climb this tree. They're around, they'll be by. As time went on, this fisher came by. We call that ochek. Ochek. Namoy na chiga ki peni satawin nan. Ta puesto, Kagi kuspatawit. This fisher went up and began to descend these ones from this tree. When he brought the first ones down, umasigitewa, ekiwita mo ata isinwa, how hutagatatno, sugimichimik, ega, tanipaisinek, aputawisagisiek. Very cautious that you hold on to me here. Hold on with all your might. And you put your feet here. That you bite me here and hold on as I bring you down. And that's how life came. And this is why we call it the chek. That He had created this way. And you see these specific markings on this fisher. On here, you'll have white marks where the first human. Right here, too. And this, where they bit onto him. This particular fisher now represents that Apishtiatsago Copenhagen, the small little dipper of how life came to be. This fissure in our language is referred to as Wastesicoot. There's two categories, Wastesicoot, awiasis. The parable to awiasis is wias. That's what we use, wias, the lenders of life. Wastesicoot, kaya Wastesicoot, not to bother them, not to eat them, So it's in this time our relationships begin from this tree of life. We call this, there is a growth here where it splits off. And this longest root here, they refer to these growths here, wâhkôhtowin. Guys, see wâhkôhtowin ito o mystic. When you take this wâhkôhtowin and you make it yours, we say nêhiyaw. And that spirit comes from this word here, sis. You're going to hear this because it comes from that third heaven, wâhkôhtowin. Wâhkôhtowin. You're going to hear this in awasis. That's why you say awa, kawi guisiagawa, wâhkôhtowin. That's what awasis means. It doesn't mean child, So again, when we say this wâhkôhtowin, guys, wâhkôhtowin. So this one here on the ground, we call this nêhiyaw, which refers to us as auntie. Agoge kapeni taigachik nêhiyaw. Nêhiyaw isquem, which refers to nephews and nieces, Why we call this nêhiyaw? Because she carries the knowledge. That's the reason why we call it nêhiyaw. I'm going to go and ask her for that spiritual guidance to this life. We have a spiritual responsibility to that. So again, we call this Wuttunee. Wuttunee is the branches, Guys, see Wuttunee ito. The branching off of new life, when we add this to how we are related, we call this nêhiyaw. Meaning, my son-in-law is now branched off to take my daughter to begin life. And the lead role to that is nesis. And you're going to hear this action and the spiritual. Nesis, ekisisawet, that he's the lead person to look after the home fire, the spiritual home fire. So again, this is where these languages come from, is from this tree of life. We call this ka, ta, nis, kwe, a, pi, wit. Ka ta nis kwe a pi wit tawa. Anis ko tapa umay. But ka ta nis kwe a pi wit. This is the word that we get out of here. Tanis, from the rooting system, And when this one begins to grow over here, another sapling, now No, I'm good with this one. So, a lot of our relationships come from this wâhkôhtowin. How we refer to one another comes from the land. We know that we say, nêhiyaw. Nêhiyaw, meaning, loose translation, a son. Nêhiyaw. Nitanis comes from this tree, from the rooting system. Nêhiyaw comes from the otters. A little otters, we say, nêhiyaw. That's what it refers to an otter, eh? That's where the joyful, that they're rough and tumble, they're not like little girls, eh? They bang their head. You know, my granddaughter walked into the fridge the other day, and she started crying. Boy, same thing. Kevin goes swimming now, a hunter, eh? Boy, he walked into the same fridge. He laughed right away, eh? Scratched his head, and off he went. And that's where this term comes from. Doesn't matter, they're rough and tumble, eh? Nêhiyaw. These 10 transformative ways as we begin to move. And I want to tell you that we get stuck in this. We get stuck in these rites of passage. We begin to become stuck. What this awa, this one. And this word here, sis, it comes from these 4 heavens that we talked about. It's this one, okay, se, go, sis. It's this parable, sis, that we talk about, because it's a spiritual being. Being lent, being sis is wâhkôhtowin. Being lent a spiritual being. That's the translation to awasis. It doesn't translate to child, eh? So we have to treat it as such from a spiritual way. So this very transformative one is that the very first stage that you see up here, we say awaches. This one is gifted to women, ta'atopishim, meaning every month that the Spirit enters you. And if a man and woman don't come together, the Spirit is returned through your moon cycle. It leaves, goes back to where it came from, our Creator. When a man and woman come together, they refer to this as awawe, meaning a spiritual egg. And they refer to this awawe, egiska awawasot. They talk about awawe. For the next 9 months, Kegas mitat. Tipiskaupi semegis kauitawa. Kamachis poini taiget. Kape pitiko kaka umenioskini. When it's born into this life, they call it awasis. And why are these ones here awa? Awaches, awa we, awasis. So when it's born here, that's the reason why we call it awasis. Then over here, once they're here, the ceremonies begin over here. The birthing ceremonies, And here, they feel every energy when they're inside the belly, eh? And it's in reference to this. We now say, well, I didn't sit on a tree. I didn't come in, on a tree. My grandmother, my kukum, would refer to this. This is what she made reference to, this, this human tree. They call it wâhkôhtowin, which is referred to the placenta. That is the tree that we sit on today. She would refer to this, euguma ka ininiwatikumiak, meaning nêhiyaw. And this is produced by the male. It's not produced by the woman. That's why it has to go. When the baby comes out, hawasis, this comes with it. This is the tree of life. Sits on this tree now. They would take this tree in the beginning, these placenta ceremonies. Kagintena astanyo aguma. That we would dig a hole and put this placenta away to connect it to this tree now, eh? This tree becomes human. It becomes human. And this is what they refer to as ogimawatik. And that is our most sacred tree. So they would always put the placenta away on the roots of this tree. That ceremony is coming back fastly. So it's in this time that it takes a 13-moon cycle before it moves on to the next stage of life. After 13 moons, we now do wâhkôhtowin, which is better known as the walking out ceremony, to greet its rightful place on Mother Earth. They call that wâhkôhtowin. And this becomes, after 13 moon cycles, they move to the next stage of her life. They call this one mistawasis. And you're going to hear this constantly, this word cis. This is when they were defined between male and female. This word here, cis. Nape cis. Isquesis comes from Wastesicoot, from that spiritual life. Kapina Sitawa, this is when they become very explorative. The next stage here, Wastenigisko. This is what we refer to as out here as Wâhkôhtowin, eh? This is the puberty stage. The ceremonies that were done here when a female would have their first menstrual cycle. Here, Wastenigiw, Pagache, Umusita Moapia, Wâhkôhtowin. Meaning that the hormones are now beginning to kick in. Eh? This is when our young people were taught about their own human anatomy. Today, they said our young people in time are going to begin to upset the balance. because of these portals. This here, mitisi, wâhkôhtowin, mitisi. It doesn't talk about, this is what your sovereignty, what Creator had given you. This portal fans out to the land. This portal, to try and connect to that. Another portal, the third portal is down here. If you don't learn of this, you're going to upset the balance. Our children are having children today because we fail to tell them. The male organs, we call that Wastesicoot, the spiritual bloodline that he carries. Mystic, Omik. On the female, we call it wâhkôhtowin, the most sacred place where life comes from the ones from the spirit world. Our young people don't even know about this. They give it derogatory terms, eh? We all heard them. So once we begin to teach them here, they begin to transition. There's still visual learning here. There are many ceremonies that occur within here, but for time-wise, we have to continue. Uskapeo and Oskisko. This is when we begin to transition the fire to them, the fire teachings. This is where the tobacco teachings come in, because they have to make those offerings for us. We teach the Uskapeok, we put them with fire so they know what to put in their spiritual fires. We get them to do the offerings with tobacco, which is stemau. With the women, they begin to utilize the fire in preparing the traditional foods that they need to prepare. So there's a lot of mentoringship that occurs in here. And once they've now here, these ones actually, we were taught here how to look after and change even diapers. Da samawa swak nis wewepisuin nis tomawa suin. We were taught all these things, eh? To put our younger siblings to sleep, to make and sing to them, to look after them, to even cook for them, eh? That's not allowed today anymore. They call it child abuse, eh? So it was preparing us to go into these next stages of life. Once we have carried this, knowing that where we come from, this is what we now enter, the nêhiyaw. Nêhiyaw does not mean man to us. It means nêpatamuin, to have that envision, both where you came from and the direction that you're going. Katigi shiskoet, meaning, that she can now bear life, to bring life into this world. But that's not happening. From achieving there here, this is when we're supposed to choose a partner and begin this whole life process again. That's not happening. It's these ones that are having children. And they fail miserably because they don't carry the skill. 82% of children in CFS come from the Ususkayak because they give up. It's in this time that we get stuck over here. I always tell the story about this friend of ours in Nepal. The time about 10 years ago, he was 66 years old. I said, "Is that Brian there? Peter, is that Brian?" Yeah, I think that's him. But I was standing by the Tim Hortons. I was going through the Tim Hortons. I said, "Brian, He had his hat on backwards, 66-year-old. Ito, tago na. Stum! Boy, he had his hat on backwards, comes walking to us. Roll down my window and he goes, "Down, sir." And his response to me was, "Sup, bro?" There's this, flexing with his hand like this. I said, "How old are you?" "Boy, 66. Well, talk like a 66-year-old. You see, he's stuck over here somewhere. He's wanting to be young, And even the way he talks to us, like a Wâhkôhtowin would talk to you today, So again, we get stuck. And this is the reason why ceremonies are so important, to spiritually acknowledge that we move to the next stage of our life. So here, this isn't it doesn't mean a number for us. Once you have those Simeon, your grandchildren move you to the next stage of your life, Even though you don't want to go, call me uncle, or call me papa, And of course, when the kokums are pushed over there, boy, they start wearing tighter jeans, They start dyeing their hair. Boy, So we don't want to go there, but our grandchildren push us to the next stage of our life, It's not about a number. You can have a grandchild when you're 46, 50, 60. It's about a spiritual process. This next stage here is the most difficult stage. You're transitioning to live by the principle of your heart, not your mind. This is when menopause occurs. In the male side, they called it andropause. The male side of you begins to leave you. This is what we call But it's not happening. Our elders struggle with this. They become angry and mean looking, They, before you even ask them something, they want you out of their way, So it's in this time, and this is why we become natural, because we become equal again. The women can't bear children, nor the man can't produce children, because we're now transitioning to live by the heart. Not from up here. When you live from up here, you begin to distinguish where people are coming from. And alas, these terms as the most humble and kindest one, and her spiritual responsibility, to create space for you. That's her spiritual role and responsibilities. So we go back to our Creator. We journey home. Back to our Creator. In our way, there's no such thing as a guy standing there with a pitchfork with horns sticking out of his skull, called the devil, I don't know why they translated Matsimantu. There's only one Mantu, eh? So it's in this transition that we have our own creation story. Again, we have our duties and responsibilities. The reason why we have 4 memorials for each of those worlds that they make at home, eh? It's in this time that these stories belong to our people. That's why I wanted to share with you.
Teaching and learning an Indigenous language is a sacred act, is a spiritual act, is a dutiful act. So it's our role to pass on languages within our families and within our communities, any way we can. And so that's another journey that I've been on. I've been teaching nêhiyaw back in my home of Sturgeon Lake through immersion camps. So this summer, we're actually 20 years old. We have a annual language gathering in Sturgeon Lake every month of July. And so I've been consistent in creating that for the last 20 years. And so going to this language immersion camp, again, helps me and my children and my family reclaim language. So it's actually a family community thing that we don't do in the school. We actually just do it on our land, by the lake, during the summertime. And so that's been pretty successful, so I'm pretty proud of that, and doing that for 20 years. In the beginning, I often like to say it was like pulling teeth, because nobody was wanting to come on this journey with me back in 2003 to 2004. And everybody would be asking me, why are you doing that? And my answer would be, because I want to know who I am as a nêhiyaw. I feel like something is missing within me, within my identity, within my soul. And I think that language and land is the only place where I can find that. And so it's been very helpful in having a positive esteem about myself, and also introducing that to my family too as well, my children. So some other inspirational quotes from this method. Language revitalization is about a process, setting up an environment and facilitating it to create new and emerging speakers. Good language leaders help learners grow. I really appreciated what Jeff was saying the other day in regards to, not giving people heck for mispronunciation, but taking their hand and then showing them how to say something properly. Otherwise, you're going to deflate their motivation. ASLA, Accelerated Second Language Acquisition, at the most creates a living environment. Teaching language is an applied brain science. So these pictures, I'm going to teach you cognition without translation and show you how that works. So when a child is learning to speak English, it is one word at a time. In nêhiyaw, it's phrases. We learn phrases at a time. Totally opposite the way English is. In language learning, there is no top student. It is a collective process. We have to teach each other. Everyone is involved. So again, it's very different from the way schools operate. We all learn together. We help each other to get to the next space in language. ASLA builds up nêhiyaw vocabulary in the form of storying. So these pictures will help tell a story later on once we get enough practice. Another featured technique is pictures take us back to memory. So this is why I like using images. Before I was very adamant about speaking first before reading and writing. I still push that ideal on people who are learning their language. Learning how to speak and listen and understand first, before reading and writing. Often I found that our CRE programs that I looked at, they were teaching reading and writing in grade 1. And I'm still not positive about that. But at least if they're getting to practice in speaking and listening and understanding, reading and writing is a good thing because we're going to need eventually novels in the language, textbooks in the language, any form of literacy in the language.
We walk with our body, our spirit, our mind. So that's the one. And it's not easy, it's full of twists and turns, ups and downs. So lose people on the way, but we're going to gain people. Right? It's a very good life, but we need to remind our relatives, right? But what I'm seeing is a lot of them are shortening their lives when they should be having that full life. And then really, we don't understand when we don't really know when we're going to get called back. But when we get called back, I make sure you have a real good, interesting story. Okay? This you know? And then here's another thing. All of you could be anywhere right now. But it's like you're showing something here. And this is our stuff. This is all of ours. But it's just reminding ourselves. Just a reminder that it's written. And I don't like the idea, we're oral based and that we only talk. That's a lie. Okay? That's a lie. So now here, I'll tell you, Uskapius, okay? Let's say if we were going to have any of those lodges that I mentioned in here, okay? So now I'm the lead Uskapius, okay? So the first thing they'll give me is stimao. Now I'm hired. I can't leave this. They lock me in. So now, first thing I do is, all right, let's go chop these rails. That that lead pole. That's the first thing I get asked when I get back to the lodge where this is going to be, where I'm going to put this lodge up. And then what I have to do as the lead Uskapius, I have to mark it with an axe. So that's in the architecture. Where does it stand in that lodge? So see, it's written in the architecture. We write everything down, but we just have to learn how to read all of these different things, different lodges, and then they're also associated with this skiuma. So that's the stuff man. But you know what I found? When we're going around in our area, what I was finding there was meaning that they don't have any of their own. So we have to go do it for them. So once you get those uskapius, and then you'll see community. You'll see wâhkôhtowin. And then once you start creating that, anamina stimao. Kaiwi gats onskisik stimao. Iguana if you go this way with that tobacco, muy katsama ka manisnagi koy. I didn't say that munya guamma. Ksimanto. Ksimanto me guamma, that's the creator guamma. Guamma ne, he, I'm young, he go skayo yan, gyap tugami skisyan. That's an elder's teaching. So anytime you want something done, dipya, even if it's cigarettes, and then that tobacco, ipmat sitana, owawa, ipmat sit yuguaya, yuskap yusud. Tap togan nigano teache, meaning if it always walks ahead of you, whatever you're asking for, that's the one that'll get things done for you. And then that's the promise. Kagimi gitawa, ksimanto, kaomsa kapiatumustoik. Yeah, go check out that earth walk. Go check it out over there. There's relatives that are waiting for you over there. Toa, you know? And then that first human, Moana, actually stopped like 3 times. And sto, ginagita, awas, you know? And then, yeah, they're ready, they're there, they're over there, they're waiting for you. Iginagit, was muchi sagihin. Oh, kutagoyag, you know? So he was stopping. And sto ganagit, he stopped. He go, Iktani go, how chis, chi, pitsna. And then he went like this. Iktana steamao. Iktana gamigo steamao, He go, owa, kaniganuti, kawichig, tapto kaniganutio. If you want to hunt, you go kagwitsimao. If you want medicines, you go kagwitsimao. If you want berries, mitswin, you go kagwitsimao. Ngamun, gagisimun, taskungion, sichigyon, kahkyo, awa. That's the one that'll do it for you. You go matapui, uskap yusun, right? Tap togis samagi, kaiwans kisik, goig masko sito stimao, right? So anything, it'll move anything for you, right? And that's a promise. Mune guamba, uti.
By the knowledge of our ancestors, you got these Cree words. That's ang I sigata it timas, you know, like we made them small, That's what's the word awa sis. Awagawi hoyan ogi sis. You know, for awa sis. Wow. You know, awa sis, you know, oh my goodness. You know, tigwit si maganana, Jeff, about the word ogweme mao, you know, nikweme. Because he says bawaga na. So gikweme. Yeah. Boy, all thing on tohtawa. Magang magitan. So, ahtake pehiga no goga, kia no nga iohti magake kia no ste. Betaman, big Mr. Naska will. Calling Badger, sigasut. Ogega be ipi tuhtamago ya hitto ngaitan. Igot ya tsahkenok. Egi nagatas kita na kigwani tawokota a light beam tawokot this paihu killed him. So they buried weki gayawaga 4 days ipum siho Mr. Naskawil. Ego kahtipuga once got after 4 days a light beam itawokot tansi aliens. You know, wait to itawokot Ego no goi pita to goga itowak. Maga moniawak itowak wow exlamag wiakik from moniaw aimehiwino James Evans. You see guys it. Reverend James Evans. So mwigin chayamat nêhiyaw say ito Dios tato moma kepehiga nog mas nahigi wano. Maga ntitin wawe si pitok Jeff kia no goga uti uhtohti magake ogi sagowe Ahtsake behigana. So, ego egi bihtaman. Apo nokom nokom gapit matsu 97 tahto piponyo. Maga nokom pan 170 tahto piponit gapit imas nahi jakapi. Jakapi hinma jakapi higina snahi. Ego ai mehta jakapi higana. Baik tas tepi ai mehta diksum sis. Ai mehta. Ego ibihtaman kita isinim na wagoge ego speed 1800s, you know, we were the most literate people in the world in the 1800s. Kiano, nêhiyaw, ego mama monyawag, kapigoptakik, you know, ematse, you know, nanatokis is naging goyak kiguma, kaisai and all the stuff we did. Pega mami masnahi ka nami ay mihtayan from a fur trader in the 1700s ito ka ngayon. His diary masnaha ka. Imasnahat isewap mat nêhiyaw. Kwek ni time tsigu ge. Kyo ipos kakik. Medicine pouches, that's ngayon. Oh, most got some man tani tin me got some tani hit anyway, they all wear medicine pouches. You go ngamuna gakio yat seg and all this stuff. Takaki katsip taken. He's swap nguya. You go me now a good tago David Mandelbaum. He siga sut good tago in the 1920s. You gonna from a fine day, he there. So that's where he wrote that book, Plains Cree. You see that, thick book, big miasik. Scott's book, you go, guys, David Mandelbaum, anthropologist. So he was able to retain a lot of, you know, our knowledges. If we had, if they didn't do that, we'd still capture a lot of our stories. So nista magsama ay guiksnamasa na snahigiwen. So anyway, our sound chart, Kiano, Plains Cree, this is where it comes from. So, this is in Stamam Snamagyan, Manoman, my Kamatik Snamagyan, Ixnamag, Ogiskinamagan, how our sound chart, Dihtagwaka. So, W, this is what. E-chronomy, siga tigom. E with a little macron. You go circumflex, siga diwa. So we say way. So way umumi tihtagwa. Way. You go oma. You put the short I ma. We. So way. You go ma long I. We. So we, woo, wa. Tihtagwa na. So we, woo, wa. Ikaw mayak mana. Ikaw ma p, ba tihtagwan. Tas so be, bi, bo, bu, ba. Iksikakyoga all the way down. You got T, muy T tihtagwan. D tihtagwan, like a. So de, di, do, da. You go mat K, that's good to G, yeah? Ge, gi, go, gu, ga. Kakio Xisa. All the way. You go magay six ma check man post way ito man Solomon rat. Omotong guy six check man post way das the mano. Yeah. You see six it's Solomon rat. Yeah, so kakyo, so omotoma standard Roman orthography siga teo moma. English letters so go get Roman orthography. Maga nêhiyaw nahamak. You gonna go get these pioneers nga siga tao get to go get. They started in the 70s or 80s. Belinda, you probably know this, huh? Gene Okemasis, ega McLeod, huh? 1950s, masnah, kegong gemasnahi, kipikskono, into a written form. Ego mo mawatipta, kego moma. But we already had a writing system. Ego moma. Ahtzahkepehigan na gay sigati goge. Ahtzahkepehigan na isigati ge. And every sound, das gets yahtzahkuach. It has a spirit. Every sound has a spirit.
If I hear a brand new story, what works is when you go home today, share a story right away. If something like I mentioned, like an atayokan, doesn't matter who it is, if it's short or the long, say it right away and then just tell it, and then you start remembering it, and you'll start seeing that little baby story with the rocks. There's going to be things that kids will remember their whole life, and then women, you'll get something from that story. Wow. Men, we're going to get something from that story. The elders, they're going to see how they can use that story, and then there's medicine in there too. All of them have medicine that for us to use. All those stories. Doesn't matter if they're real short, but they're, you know how these tiles are put together? Sometimes you'll miss a real big piece here, and then you'll maybe like 10 years down the line, in my life, I'll be like, that's where it is. I'm like that, I've been missing that my whole life. Like I heard this part, but not that part, and then it's it. Those songs, they have words in there, right? Just out of respect, this is my uncle Ungamonuma, and then maybe that's as far as probably I'll go. But here's just an example. So Isagi Chagoge, they went all over the place with the sled, tapagan. All over, got into all sorts of amazing adventures, and then that song goes right? So it's a real fast pace. We sing that song, and that's why we do this. That's why we, like these guys, have been doing it like all winter, these guys, the guides, and then it felt so good to be out there today. And that's our relative, that song, Mayakan. That's why Manaya, like we always joke, these are res dogs, because they all look all different, eh? And they're not drums, but I still say it, you're lying.
You want to get spanked? Your thing was caught on the chair.
I felt it. But the old ladies, man, when we're doing this, like the ghost dance, the old ladies used to always have a little puppy. They used to have like a little dog. There was like that little puppy, that little dog, that was medicine. And then the more dogs that you had, because it takes time, you got to take care of them, you got to love them, you got to nurture them, because they could take care of you too. And I have stories there where, let's say somebody had an infection, and then that dog would lick that infection, and then clean that infection, they would be healed. There's even medicines from that dog, that puppy, the tail, where you can take a little bit of hair off of there and then do something, and then it'll clean, keep everything safe. There's even stories I have where, you know, right? The white poop, that, it can't be like other different, it's gotta be white poop baskets, huh? But there's something that you can do with that white poop too to make things safe. So again, when that puppy or that dog is barking, it's helping us. It's part of our community. And why? Because Mayagan and Wastesicoot were twins. That's how they were born. And then today, so it was, and that story is the North Star. That's the North Star. So that's the one that comes over there, and it's part of the Little Dipper, and also part of the little woman's pipe. Woman's pipe is up there, and that's the one that we all follow. That star is called Mayakanatak, that North Star. Right? So if we respect our animals, we take care of them, watch, they're going to take care of us. We still are.
My kukum, when she began to sing, ka nigamot, and they referred to this as nistoma wâhkôhtowin, the children. Ka nistoma wâhkôhtowin, meaning when you're singing to children. And she would not use a rattle or a drum. She would just simply connect with her heartbeat. Or she'd connect this child to her heart. That same unison to that heartbeat was a spiritual role that Gokums played. And she would begin to sing. Kasawe me konao kise maneto we ya we ya we ya hey we ya we ho we ya Kasawe me konao ke kawina aske we ya we ya hey we ya we ho we ya Kasawe me konao o ge go esquel we nanas ko matan que se maneto we